Hey, everybody. So, here's my thoughts on part three of the Beatles Get Back. And also, I'm going to give some thoughts in general about my overall feeling about everything and address some comments I've seen other people make and kind of give an overall summary too. Part three. Uh, God, I'm going to tell you this right now. I was emotionally spent at the end of it. Definitely emotionally spent. It was everything I wanted and more. I mean, we begin part three where Ringo is working on Octopus's Garden, and George is helping him with that. And even George Martin comes in and he listens. So a lot of fun moments like that. But for me in part three, the telling moments are not when they are rehearsing and going over these songs. To me, um, Paul had a mysterious meeting at 1:30 one day, and that's when John um, finally talks to George and Ringo about his meeting with Alan Klein. I was shouting at the television. Well, I wouldn't say shouting, but I was like, when I'm hearing John tell George, he knows everything about us. He knows how much we've been earning, and he knows us better than we know ourselves. I mean, he digs what you're doing, and it's like I was impressed. He knew what we should be earning and what we're not earning. He knew the numbers, and I'm like, yeah, John, he did his research, and you fell for it hook, line, and sinker, man. John, don't fall for it. Even Glenn Johns kind of is warning him off. Alan Klein, he's sort of speaking in code by saying he's a funny guy. When you disagree with something he says, he'll just immediately change the topic. And it's, I mean, right there is when I saw, um, you know, the big mistake. Everybody wants to talk about Yoko breaking up the Beatles, and I think in this, it shows that she is not this intrusive person like everybody says. She just sat next to John. Although I know people, and I've seen them comment, will still say, "Oh, well, she's a producer of this." No, the estate is the producer, and Sean has basically is basically running the estate now. So I'm not going to go down that path, but that's pretty much that. But I love the rock and roll jam session. I love John sort of talking to Heather, because we were always told that John he really didn't know how to behave with kids, and he would always take a look at Paul playing with Julian. So I found that kind of telling there when Heather was inspired by Yoko on Dig It. When she starts to do her thing in the mic, John immediately turns to Yoko and goes, "Yoko!" that was a funny moment for me. And of course, we got George talking about something, and that's where you have the famous quote from John there. It could be, you just keep on saying it until you get the word. Like, attracts me like a cauliflower. A cauliflower. So that was nice, and as well as them working on Old Brown Shoe, and Paul getting behind that drum kit. There's some discrepancy on who plays what on that song, because according to the Abbey Road box in Kevin Hollett's notes, it says Paul plays drums on it because Ringo was away shooting the Magic Christian. But when I hear Ringo playing drums here, I'm like, oh, that sounds like Ringo, because Paul said he could never play a shuffle rhythm. But that's a different story. But I love the rock and roll jam. If there's a slight flaw, I would have liked the whole rock and roll medley to be there. But all of these are minor in in the whole thing. All these are minor quibbles I have because we all have our own personal thing. But that's my thing. I wish they had the full rock and roll jam session that they did on that day. Um, but again, the conversation. In Let It Be, that conversation where Paul is saying, how nervous they are. And in Let It Be, John is smoking a cigarette and he lifts his arm up and he stretches. It's like, Paul, you're boring me with your conversation, but with your talking. But we see here that this is an actual conversation, and John is trying to get Paul to do the rooftop. And this is a discussion that goes on for quite a while. John is like, okay, we have 7 numbers. Let's do 7. And Paul is like, no, we should do, we need the 14, and John is game for going on the roof. George is kind of standoffish when he finally sits down, but the whole thing is this could be a dress rehearsal. We have 7 songs. Let's do 7 songs. And you see that John is very keen. He wants to do this. And Paul is like, I don't know what this is. Is this a movie about us making an album? What's it about now? I get what Paul's trying to do. I mean, Paul did this with his solo career and Wings. He makes an event out of every album he puts out, whether there be a television special, like when Red Rose Speedway came out, you had the James Paul McCartney special, a world tour, posters and stickers in the record. Nowadays, multiple pressings on colored vinyl, which get people upset. But Paul doesn't just like to do an album to be an album. He wants it to be an event, which is why they did the film for Magical Mystery Tour. So Paul, I don't think he doesn't know how to make it an event. And John is telling him the payoff is us doing the numbers directly to the camera very well. But they do eventually agree to go on the roof. And the rooftop concert, the complete rooftop concert, and I love the fact that Peter Jackson, he did this in multi-screen. So you're getting the people on the street and you're hearing what's going on. I mean, these guys are incredible. And I'm sitting there thinking, geez, what could have been if they agreed to play live again? It's telepathic, these guys. I don't know what it is, but they had that chemistry. Just for the 4 or 5 songs they did. I mean, Get Back, Don't Let Me Down, the one after 909, Dig a Pony. Just those 4 songs, 4 or 5 songs. It's incredible what they did. And how people are gathering on nearby roofs. I got to tell you, I love the fact that they had a hidden camera set up in the Apple offices. You got to thank Jimmy the doorman and Debbie the secretary. They got to be the heroes of that because Jimmy stalling the police officers the way he did. They're just doing a couple of numbers, and I mean, Debbie going, I don't know what's going on. I really don't. Just don't go on the roof. And when they finally get up to the roof, I never saw this before, but Paul keeps on looking back at them. The ending Paul really wanted, where they were doing something illegal and they get arrested, could happen. And he keeps on looking at them with a smile on his face. I think he was slightly antagonizing them. Come and get us, damn it. Come and get us. Instead, they didn't do that, of course. But they traffic on Savile Row was basically at a standstill. People were in the streets. And then something that we never saw. they go down to back into the studio, into the control booth to hear what they were doing. And it's amazing. They are just smiles on their faces. And even George Martin says, this could be the dress rehearsal for something bigger. And there's a couple of things there. I truly believe, they were coming apart at the seams. We see that at Twickenham. But the Stones took advantage of touring in 69. But to be totally honest, why do we love the Beatles? Because they all said, the four of us together, it's magic. If the four of us together are not creating the magic, or if one of us wants to leave, then that's it. We need the four of us to create that magic, which is what Paul was trying to say at Twickenham. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. So, we know what's going to happen. Another slight quibble I have, it's just slight, was they didn't do the full Apple performance concert, but at the same time, we're seeing all the outtakes on the end credits, and who knows if they got through complete performances? They could have been done with editing. I don't know, but we see a lot of breakdowns and all this other stuff. So, but I know Peter Jackson wanted Let It Be to be its own separate thing, and his film be his film. So, Let It Be is going to come out sometime next year. That's what the official rumor is, along with a Blu-ray set with even more additional footage from this. Could they also do it on 4K UHD with Dolby Atmos? That would be great. Come on, Disney, if this is going to come out on Disney. If not, come on, Apple. Think about it. And maybe it doesn't need to come out on 4K. So overall, I really enjoyed this series, this 3-part series. And I've since rewatched some of the episodes and some parts of the episodes. That is the good thing about streaming until physical media comes out. We want to watch it again. It's there on Disney Plus. Thank God Peter Jackson convinced Disney Plus. He convinced Disney to allow the swearing. And I don't know if it was the previous CEO, Bob Iger, who wanted to be more family friendly and not have swearing, or if Bob Chapek is there. This is a separate conversation when I talk about film and movies. I have my issues with Bob Chapek, but if he allowed that swearing on here, then hats off to him. If it was his decision on Disney Plus, because they made Lin-Manuel Miranda take out the 3 F words in Hamilton on Disney Plus. But I'm happy he did that. The way it looks is incredible. It's incredible. Now, the film purist in me, I normally have issues when they degrain the picture because it's not so much being a film purist, but in the film grain, it could be as details like the specks on Paul's beard or John's hair. But Peter Jackson, in making this, he didn't say that this is a representation of what was on the original 16mm negatives in 1969 and 1970. He didn't say that. And the way it looks like it was shot today, basically. And to paraphrase this writer in The Guardian, not the one who gave it a bad review, but the opinion writer, where he said the Beatles, everybody looks like they're from 1969 in this thing. but the Beatles look like they're from today and transported back in a time machine. They look like they're from the future. And I think that's telling. I also think that's telling in how influential these guys were in fashion. Everything the Beatles wore, even in the 70s, the solo years, doesn't look dated. And I mean, probably because an influential designer like Paul's daughter, Stella, is inspired by a lot of these fashions that they did, that they wore. So that was an interesting take. So I really don't have a lot of quibbles about this, but I do want to address some things. Look, I totally get the idea of this should be for the casual fan. It's too long. It's an overindulgence. The overindulgence part I don't get. I originally said I wanted this to be an epic, and it's a trilogy, a 3-part epic. You could probably call it the Lord of the Rings of rock documentaries because it's Peter Jackson, or you can call it the War and Peace of rock documentaries. I mean, each episode is of epic length, and they make a good documentary on their own. But I'm tired of all this stuff for the casual fan, the person that has the one collection and has the Spotify playlist. There is something Andrew Sandoval had said, and I will try and put a link to it or copy and paste it if I can. But if anybody knows who Andrew Sandoval is, he used to be with Rhino Records, and he is responsible for a lot of the Monkees releases. But on his Facebook page, he put something very profound about why it's long and what Peter Jackson did. I mean, they could have easily told Peter Jackson, this is going to be 90 minutes long, and we have interviews lined up with Questlove and Dave Grohl talking about their thoughts of what the Beatles were going through during that period, and you're going to cut back to these talking heads, and they're going to narrate over the footage 8 days a week. And I want to talk about that separately, but I'll just kind of address it here. I don't know if that was Ron Howard's fault, or if Apple got in the mix, or if Apple and Universal got in the mix. I did hear from Mitchell Axelrod from Fab 4 Free For All, the podcast, that it was test screened. And one of the things that came back from the notes on the test screen was that there was too much music in 8 days a week. I mean, it's the Beatles. Too much music? I mean, to be fair, the documentary is also called The Touring Years, but the way they originally addressed it, we were really going to get an inside look at the Beatles on tour. I mean, yeah. Very good. I'm looking forward to that. But no, it's the touring years is meant in a general sense. We're going to focus on the years that they were on tour and what happened during the years they were on tour. I mean, it's great. I love seeing Sigourney Weaver at the Hollywood Bowl when she was a kid, and her talking about her being there at the Hollywood Bowl. Very good. I'd want to hear from the 4 girls behind her who aren't famous. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg had a very incredible and moving story about what her mom did for her to go to Shea Stadium. I would have loved to hear that from maybe another black woman who probably had the same experience that isn't famous, like Whoopi Goldberg. So Peter Jackson was very hands-on with this. I don't even know how hands-on Scorsese was with living in the material world. And Scorsese is like my god of movies, but Peter Jackson was very hands-on. Peter Jackson created something historic here. And And it wasn't like he was dipping in and out of the editing room while he is working on another movie. I mean, when Scorsese did Living in the Material World, I think he was in production on Shutter Island and Hugo. Peter Jackson had absolutely nothing else. So I definitely know that he was in the room and wasn't just coming out and doing promo for the film when he only just dipped his head in and out and got with somebody on a Zoom call. I mean, and the other stuff, we heard the stuff that this was a whitewash, that this was going to be a whitewash. It's Paul rewriting history. And that turned out to not be the case at all. And some of this stuff, I'm scratching my head saying, how in the hell did they get away with this? How did they get away with having the cafeteria conversation between John and Paul? That is a massive revelation right there, in my opinion. How did they get away with John talking about he was stoned and high the other night watching movies? So I mean, obviously that's the only time that the heroin thing gets truly addressed. I mean, I rewatched part one, and John is not dead at Twickenham. He is showing up late, but every time he's there, he's contributing ideas. He really is actively contributing ideas. He's showing up late, but it's not like he doesn't care. It's just he doesn't have any damn songs. He has one song right then and there. So that's the main thing, is he has no songs. But it turned out to not be a whitewash. I always said that there was an in-between story here. I mean, this is, there wasn't the punch-up between George and John. Well, they talk about it in there with the newspaper article by Hausgo. That's how you pronounce his name. They definitely talk about it. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Well, John and George aren't alive. Well, their words are right there. You're hearing it right there from the horse's mouth. So just a lot of things here. I know I've heard some people talk, well, we get like 8 hours of them joking around. Well, I don't know what movie you saw. I did hear that from somebody, and we kind of debated back and forth. I mean, it doesn't show them really getting tight as a band. You don't get tight as a band all of a sudden like that. The thing is, the Beatles knew each other, okay? They knew each other. But you hear John telling Ringo on Dig a Pony in the studio, I want the drums to go boom, kick drum, cha, which totally impressed me because I always heard stuff that John was never musically articulate the way Paul was. I totally got what John was talking about. You hear them contributing ideas to get back and coming up with arrangement ideas. I mean, you hear this collaboration. It's all there. So I don't think it's overindulgent. I mean, does the Grateful Dead, and I know there isn't a casual Grateful Dead fan out there, but Dead fans are diehard. But let's say there is a Dead fan out there that just has a Dead playlist that has Uncle John's Band, Casey Jones, Truckin', Ripple, Touch of Grey, and just has the 5 or 6 or 10 like known hits that they had. The team that the Grateful Dead has, that they don't do that. They release stuff for the diehards. Now, I do think a casual fan can enjoy this, but I don't think it's an overindulgence of material. I do think part 2, there could have been some things shaved off on part 2. It's just under 3 hours, part 2. So some things could have been shaved off there. But again, that's a minor quibble. Overall, I'm happy with this epic historical document that we have, an epic record of one of probably the most controversial period of the Beatles' career. a period that's been editorialized, and so many books. Sex, Drugs, and a Slipping Image is a famous one. So many so-called biographers and bloggers and magazine writers, so many articles about this period that really didn't get it in my eyes. And neither did we, and neither did they, the Beatles. So it was refreshing to see this. The only sad thing about this, and which is why I started to go back and rewatch it, is that the end of part 3, I was just hanging out with these guys. I was hanging out with them. And at the end of part 3, I was sad. I didn't cry. I was also emotionally exhausted. But I was like, bye, guys. It was nice hanging with you. So that's why I immediately went back and started watching part 1 again. I want to hang out with these guys again. And that's what I love about this. I'm hanging out with them. And it's also the Beatles with clay feet. One more thing I want to add here. I love the fact that when it comes to the anthology and this, it's the Beatles taken off the stained glass window. And that's how I always want the people I admire. I want them real. And this makes them even more real to me. And again, hats off to Peter Jackson. Hats off to Peter Jackson. Great filmmaker. How does one go from Bad Taste to this? And if you've never seen Bad Taste, I highly, highly recommend it. But give me some of your thoughts on this. It's I know we have a lot to talk about here, and there's a lot of great blogs out there, a lot of great podcasts out there. Kid O'Toole's got one. My buddy at Pop Goes the 60s, who did a really good in-depth thing on the whole Get Back, Let It Be thing based on the Niagara recordings. Joe Mayo. There's a lot of great people out there talking about this, and I can't wait for more stuff. If we do get more stuff, but this just takes the cake right now. I mean, that is breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert. So I will talk to you soon.